Members, we are going to take up file item 58. That's SB 142. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 142 by Senator Jackson and others, enacting a civil law.
Mr. Gatto, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was a father in Kentucky a couple years ago who came outside to find a drone was hovering over his underage teenage daughters. The drone was hovering, and it was obvious that it was there with no good intention. This father in Kentucky did what I think most responsible parents would do. He took the drone out. He stopped it from trespassing on his property and spying on his teenage daughters. For that, this caring father was sued, and he had to pay many thousands of dollars for protecting his family and his property. Well, folks, SB 142 would fix that. It would simply state that if a drone is on a property without someone's permission, so if a drone is wrongfully on someone's property, that it is a trespass. If you drive on someone's property with a car, you're trespassing. If you're looking on someone's property to break in, you're trespassing. It makes no sense that a drone should be able to look in your window and and the operator should not be guilty of the same trespass. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gatto. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of SB 142. This is a simple measure that defines a property owner's aerial property rights. The bill does nothing more than require that property owners consent to have drones fly over their own property. SB 142 addresses an issue unsettled under current law and will clarify for both drone operators and property owners that their rights and responsibilities, what those rights and responsibilities are. As you hear, there are members of our community within our own district that are taking matters into their own hands and taking drones out of the sky, whether it's with a broom, a stick, or a gun. That's dangerous for our communities. It's a bummer for the drone operators. And this bill builds on my drone bill, which passed out of this House with broad bipartisan support, and it passed out of the Privacy Committee with unanimous bipartisan support. It's a good bill, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Gibson, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. I respect the good intentions and the hard work behind this bill, but must rise in opposition to it. The unmanned aircraft industry is rapidly growing, creating jobs in the sector of California's economy. In fact, the largest U.S. facility of the world's largest commercial drone manufacturer is located in my district. And right now, the California's community and companies and consumers are using this emerging technology in new, innovative ways and also exciting ways to support the economy and also for a public benefit. The last thing we need to do in our state is limit owners and also limit the ability to not only create jobs and also create revenue for our particular industry here in California this will have a significant impact. I respectfully ask that this bill be brought back for further dialogue on the floor. Also, I want to point out there is no significant data or scientific data or research, legal precedents that has been set to speak to this particular area. And so I respectfully ask my colleagues for a no vote regarding this particular bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. Ms. Grove, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully rise in opposition of this bill. This bill isn't just as simple as just asking for permission for the landowner to be able to, for someone to be able to use a drone on land ownership. This specifically identifies a space above the ground at 350 feet. The FAA already requires you to have permission above 400 feet. So you only have a 50 feet clearance, a very narrow margin for these drones to operate in. And when you think about this new industry that's coming into California, there's a drone manufacturer in my district, one of my colleagues from Watts. It's creating jobs, and we don't want to regulate this industry out of business before it even starts. These drones are used when you look at agriculture for the drought. They fly over massive lands of agriculture, and they determine where in the ground that the ground is more dry and yet more moist, so they can adequately direct the minimal water supply that they have. They go along pipelines like the San Bruno pipelines and all the safety concerns that we have in different areas of industry. They fly along these pipelines. They can detect leaks. They can't fly between that 350 to 450 foot radius in order to detect that. They fly, when you look at large retail or large equipment manufacturing companies, these drones have the ability to go by these large these large retail industries where you have equipment, and they can scan the equipment ID number and get all the detailed listings of all the maintenance and all the inventory that large industries have. These drones will serve a great purpose for us. Wildland, mapping the canyon that's over in my district in East Kern that has never been mapped before, and because of drone technology we were able to map that. So don't regulate an industry out of business. This bill does way more than just get permission from the landowner. There is a difference in the height off the ground that these drones can operate, and this very narrow margin that this bill would create if this bill is passed is almost impossible for them to operate in. All of us want to make sure that people like the gentleman back east that our colleague was talking about when he introduced the bill, that our private rights are protected. But we need to make sure that, and there are laws on the books already that allow you to pursue that and to pursue action against somebody who violates your privacy rights. But to limit the drone industry in this particular bill is just way out of line. And I would ask that you consider that, because it is not just as simple as getting permission. It's about making sure that we allow them to fly and do the things that we need them to do in order to make our industries safer and us safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crow. Mr. Hadley, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I must also rise regretfully in opposition to SB 142. I say regretfully because I share the goals of the author and of those who support it. But this bill is not ready for prime time. FAA action is pending, and this bill neither accomplishes what we want it to accomplish, but it also creates a real problem for the future. The reason it doesn't accomplish what we want it to accomplish is that we are at risk of our privacy today, whether it is directly above our property or not. We have to manage these technology issues more broadly than by creating a defined airspace of protection. But my bigger concern about this bill, in terms of getting this policy right, is that at this early stage in the development of these capabilities and of this industry, what this bill does specifically is it recognizes a property right in that airspace. And for those of you who know me, I'm as big a fan of property rights as anybody on this floor. But property rights are constitutionally protected. Once this body has recognized in law those property rights, our ability to get our policy right in this area, if we've made any missteps with this legislation, would be severely compromised. So I agree with my colleague from Carson. This bill needs more work. I share the goal of the authors, but I would urge a no vote on SB 142 today.
Mr. Mathis, you are recognized.
Members, I stand in opposition. It's not a matter of the privacy issue. We all hold privacy very near and dear to us. Looking over this bill further, it doesn't define exactly what a drone is. It just says it's an unmanned aerial vehicle, which simply means one of my son's toy helicopters could be defined by the same definition as being a drone. A child playing with a toy doesn't need to be sought after for invading somebody's private property and their personal space. We need to look at this. We need to look more in depth at the definitions of what we are calling drones. And yeah, we get into this 350, 400 feet. regulation of our property. But within this bill, it doesn't define what the drone actually is, and this could be a toy. So now we're going to have, this bill goes through, and now we're going to have people out there, kids are flying their toys, and the police are going to get called on them. We need to revisit this, redefine it, and really come together with something that's very meaningful and will protect us. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Daly, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support of this bill. This is about private property rights. This is about making sure that somebody's not looking in your back window. I had a town hall meeting a couple of weeks ago with Senator Gaines in my district. A member brought forth a picture of a drone looking in through his window. He was in his house. We're not going to stop making drones in California. Yes, they're a great tool. They're a great tool for agriculture in my business. But we need to have some regulation on the abuses of drones. If we need to make regulations so people can fly them for commercial use, absolutely. But for today, this is a good, strong bill. It's a great start. It's about private property rights, about your privacy. I urge you to vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Mr. Wagner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and regrettably, like my friend from Torrance, I do have to rise in opposition. The idea is perhaps a good one here and may be a good start, but there are some problems with this bill that need to be addressed. I have been had the opportunity to co-author one of the very first legal articles on drone law that appeared in Westlaw for the lawyers. You know the publication. And so it is something I've had a chance to dig into here. And just don't think this bill is quite fully cooked yet, to use a phrase we heard in reference to an earlier bill, for a couple of reasons. First of all, it is true that this is a property rights bill. The fact is, however, you have a property right, an ownership right, in the drone that you're flying. And as my friend from Tulare said, we don't know that these drones are all up in the sky for nefarious purposes. Indeed, they may very well be, as he said, children out playing with their toys. But regardless, there is a property right there. Agreed, there's also a property right in your land. But the United States Supreme Court has told us, frankly inconsistent with this bill in my opinion, that airspace rights do not extend from the ground up infinitely into space. That's the United States versus Cosby case. And so we are trying to define something that is inconsistent with the Supreme Court definition. And look at what we've done. It's perhaps too cute to say we picked this number 350 feet out of the air, but we have. We've just kind of picked 350 feet out of the air. What's the magic at 350 feet? What can you see if you've got a high-tech camera at 350 feet that you can't at 351? Maybe that's why the Federal Aviation Administration is itself, as we speak, working on laws related to drones that, by the way, will end up co-opting the field and making whatever we do here immaterial. And so we have federal law overlays, we have private property interests, and the argument for the bill, which is tempting, that we hear from my friend from L.A., involves a case out of Kentucky where a father is prosecuted for taking the law into his own hands, and not a case out of California, though I don't doubt there are cases here in California. I also would tell you I don't doubt that father did what I would have done in the same circumstances, and probably almost everyone on this floor would have done in the exact same circumstances. But there's an adage in the law. Bad cases make bad law. Bad facts make bad law. Those one-offs or two or three-offs don't suggest that we should jump in to a new area of technology. And by the way, the tech companies are telling us, don't do this. You're going to stifle creativity. You're going to stifle innovation. The law is not on our side when we try to do this, as I read United States versus Cosby. The FAA is involved and going to preempt what we do. No good reasons I see for us to jump now to support this bill. Like others that have been before us today, the argument is, Let's come back. Let's do it right when this area of technology and law both had the opportunity to mature. I'd urge a no vote.
All debate having ceased on the item, Mr. Gatto, you may close.
Thank you. I'll try to address each point made by the opposition. First, to the gentleman from Irvine who quoted so many legal concepts, I'm sure he remembers the same cases that I do from law school where it was argued that stoplights would stifle the burgeoning automotive industry and that if we put in red curbs that it would stop car sales, but that did not happen. Secondly, to the gentleman from Irvine, the Supreme Court case that he referenced deals only with manned aircraft, so helicopters and airplanes flown by a police officer, so that disposes of those claims. Third, and this is an important concept, this bill is 1 page long. I would encourage people to read it. To the gentleman from Visalia who said that this might preclude kids from flying toys, Section 21012 explicitly exempts balloons and toys from this bill. So there's that. To the gentle lady from Bakersfield, the key word in this bill is wrongfully. This will not prevent a farmer from flying over property because he has permission to fly over his property. He's not there wrongfully. This literally is only the example that I gave in the beginning, which is these are people who are up to no good flying over your property. And lastly, I want to address the foot level thing because a number of speakers talked about that. Actually, that is what the FAA is putting into law. That is what Amazon is asking us to put into law. The idea is that the feds will regulate everything over 400 feet. The states are free to regulate everything beneath it, but we want to create a corridor between 350 and 400 feet where the drones like Amazon can fly. It will be a drone corridor where they can fly to deliver packages. That's why this bill has 350 feet and lower in it. I also stress there is no ability in this bill to file a claim against a drone manufacturer. I know the gentleman from Carson cited that in his opening, and this is only against the wrongdoer. It's not against manufacturers. There's no class action rights. It's not going to stifle innovation or hurt the manufacturers in anybody's district. There is no law right now to protect people who see their privacy invaded. A person's home is their castle. It should stay that way. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gatto. With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 All members vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 43, noes 11. Measure passes. Members, all other items will be passed and retained. We are moving to announcements. We are moving to consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read the second-day consent calendar.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 71 by Senator Gaines and others relative to Fireworks Safety Month.
The clerk will open the roll on the second-day consent calendar. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 76, no 0. The consent calendar is adopted. The clerk will read the remaining items. No other items to read. Members, we are moving to announcements and adjournments in memory. The following members were granted prior permission to speak on an adjournment in memory. Members, I'd ask for your respectful attention as we adjourn in the memory Ms. Baker, you are recognized from your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise to ask that we adjourn in memory today of Mary Alice Tuttle, a resident of Danville who passed away on August 9th of this year. Mary passed away due to complications following cardiac arrest. She leaves behind many dear friends in the East Bay community. She was born in Rothville, Missouri, attended Rothville High School, and graduated from the University of Missouri in Columbia in 1951. Her passion for service was the foundation of her distinguished 25-year career teaching elementary school in 5 states, including California and Pleasanton in my district. The passion and creativity for which she was known were shown all throughout her career as an elementary school teacher. And then when she retired, she began a whole new amount of adventure and service to the community. She began a marketing business with her husband, Roy, called Classic Values. She built long-lasting relationships and friendships with business contacts and leaders throughout the East Bay community. She was very active in not only the local Chamber of Commerce and Community Presbyterian Church of Danville and the Danville Sycamore Valley Rotary. She was also just a great leader with our Exchange Club, helping organize the group and do some of the best service projects they do all throughout by East Bay community. Her dedication to community service was recognized when she was awarded the Danville Citizen of the Year just last year. She's survived by her daughter, Susan Tuttle Morse, her son-in-law, Robert Morse, of Anchorage, Alaska, and her granddaughter, Marion Jean Gilmore, of Oregon. She's also survived by 7 siblings. She was preceded in death by her husband, Robert Roy Tuttle, by 2 children, Barbara Jean Tuttle and Mary Jane Tuttle, and her brothers Oliver Jean and Garrett Matthews. Mary's faith and energy, spirit of love and charity and goodwill were self-evident to everyone who knew her. It has really rocked our community that she has passed, and I thank colleagues for adjourning in her memory today.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Ms. Grove, you are recognized from your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today, colleagues, to adjourn in memory of Dr. David Markowitz. You know, just recently, East Kern County was on the news for one of the largest manhunts in our area, actually in the state of California. Many law enforcement agencies were involved. It was a 14-day manhunt. And Mr. Markowitz is one of the victims of the perpetrator in which took place in our East Kern area. So I ask you to adjourn in the memory of Dr. David Markowitz. I rise in today to adjourn in Dr. David Markowitz's memory. Dr. Markowitz was a longtime resident and a dentist of Tehachapi. He was a victim of a home invasion homicide on his ranch on July 30th, 2015. I can tell you that his wife was texting him after the sheriff and everybody was pursuing this particular gentleman. And his wife was texting him, and he didn't text back during this conversation, so they went up and checked, and they found him dead inside his ranch property. And it's really sad that this took place because he was a valued member of our community. He attended Fresno State University where he met his wife Cheryl, and instead of pursuing a career in baseball, he turned his attention to zoology and in the intent of attending dental school. Following graduation from the University of Pacific of Dentistry in San Francisco, Dr. Markowitz opened a private dental practice in Tehachapi where he served his community with compassion and legendary care, treating local residents and numerous Hollywood stars for 33 years. When not in the dental office, Dr. Markowitz was also an avid geologist, lecturer, and underground miner holding and working claims in the Mojave Desert and the Kelso Valley for almost 40 years. He used his mining skills and experience to write a highly successful book, A Fortune in the Desert. Dr. Markowitz will be greatly missed, and he is survived by his wife Cheryl, children Jason, Christy, Jonathan, and 6 grandchildren. He was a family man, and we're really sorry that we've lost him in our community. I thank you guys for adjourning in his memory.
Thank you, Ms. Grove. Mr. Holden, you are recognized from your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to adjourn in memory of a community hero, Sierra Madre Fire Captain Chris Morrison. Captain Morrison moved to Sierra Madre in the mid-1970s with his family and quickly became an integral part of the community. In 1992, Captain Morrison joined the Sierra Madre Volunteer Fire Department and epitomized the mission of the Volunteer Fire Department, neighbors helping neighbors. Captain Morrison unselfishly volunteered for over 20 years, serving in many roles: fireman, engineer, and finally retiring captain. Countless hours of service to the residents of Sierra Madre interrupted sleep, time spent away from his family, holidays interrupted by the call of duty. He proved time and again to be a valuable and tireless community asset, and without ever receiving compensation, he dutifully fulfilled that role in Sierra Madre. He was taken far too soon, leaving this world after only 52 years. After a short battle with stage 4 lung cancer, members, please join me in extending condolences to his wife, Lori, his daughter, Claire, and his parents, brothers, sister, and extended family in this time of sorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Mr. Jones, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, for your attention this morning. It is with great sadness that I ask the Assembly to adjourn in the memory of Harriet Louise Kovacs, who lost her battle with cancer on August 6, 2015. Harriet was born to James and Ellen Reese on October 1, 1949, and grew up in San Diego, California. After graduating from Claremont High School in 1967, Harriet began studying nursing locally at Mesa College and went on to receive her LVN certification from Multnomah School of the Bible in Portland, Oregon. Harriet married Frank Kovacs on September 4, 1971, and raised 4 children: Benjamin, Joseph, Daniel, and Sarah, and they currently have 9 amazing grandchildren. Frank and Harriet are personal friends of my wife's and I, and more than that, just mentors as well. When I was entering the ministry full-time in 2001, Frank and Harriet were some of the couples that were instrumental in getting us started and mentoring us and helping us in our ministry. I reached out to some other community members in preparation for this adjournment in memory to find out what they had to say about Harriet. And everybody I spoke to, the comments were nearly identical. In over 20 years of ministry, she influenced over 100 women away from a life of crime, prostitution, and poor living into a life of righteousness and following Christ. She ministered in marriages throughout the many decades of ministry with her and her husband, Frank. The comment that was most often given about Harriet is that she had a strong testimony. Her convictions were real, with grace, beauty, and love, even in the face of family turmoil and family setbacks. She was fully committed to her family and Christ. She was a loving mother and devoted wife for almost 44 years. She was a great friend to myself and many in our community. One of the things that was said about her is she exemplifies the Proverbs 31 wife. I hope that you will join me in honoring this sweet woman by joining in her memory today. Members, I thank you for adjourning in Harriet Kovacs' memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mr. Levine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to ask that the Assembly adjourn today in memory of Deb Hubsmith, founder of the Safe Routes to School National Partnership. Deb passed away last week in Fairfax after a 2-year battle with leukemia. Deb was a passionate, creative, thoughtful, dedicated, and tenacious advocate and leader in the movement for healthy, active communities. She brought incredible integrity and commitment to her work to advance safe routes for children and families to walk and bicycle to school and in everyday life. She simply did all the right things for all the right reasons. She was recognized several times with various awards for her work. In 2012, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recognized Deb's passionate leadership with the Pioneering Innovation Award as a game changer in advancing policies and strategies to prevent and control obesity. Active Living Research honored Deb with a 2015 Translating Research to Policy Award. The Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals gave her their 2015 Lifetime Achievement Award. Deb's achievements are far and wide. In 2000, Deb worked with then Congressman Jim Oberstar from Minnesota in establishing a federally funded pilot Safe Routes to School program in Marin County. Based on the success she helped create in Marin, Deb again worked closely with Congressman Oberstar in 2005 to obtain $1.1 billion in federal nationwide funding for the Safe Routes to School program through the federal transportation bill known as Safety Lou. 15,000 schools across the country have received funding from Safe Routes to Schools. In anticipation of the federal funding, Deb founded the National Partnership in 2005. In this capacity, Deb testified before congressional committees about the benefits of Safe Routes to School. Under Deb's leadership, the National Partnership has today become a powerful coalition with more than 750 partners, a $3 million annual budget, and nearly 30 staff across the country. Also in 2005, through Safety Lou, Deb helped establish the federal non-motorized pilot program, bringing $25 million to Marin County and 3 other communities across the country to build out bike and pedestrian infrastructure. In 1999, Deb was instrumental in establishing the nation's first statewide Safe Routes to School program in California through AB 1475 by Assemblywoman Soto. In 2007, Deb helped to secure permanent funding for the program through AB 57, also authored by Assemblywoman Soto. Deb also co-led the California Advocacy Campaign and coalition that secured the new $130 million per year in 2013 for the Active Transportation Program through SB 99. Congressman Oberstar used to say, "We're changing the habits of an entire generation." That was Deb. Beyond bicycling, Deb was also passionate about yoga and dance and her hobbies. She was a great believer in the power of intention, prayer, and Reiki. In dealing with leukemia, Deb, always the advocate, encouraged everyone to be registered as a potential bone marrow donor through bethematch.org. She loved the beach and the sun and took annual trips to Kauai for yoga retreats. She was a gymnast and cheerleader growing up, and she channeled that positive energy into her work. In a final statement to the National Partnership staff and board members, Deb said, "I have so much gratitude for all of you. Thank you for growing and diversifying our movement for healthy kids, streets, and communities." If Deb were here today, she would call on all of us in the legislature to increase California's investment in safe bicycling and walking infrastructure for every community in the state. Deb leaves behind a nationwide legacy in a national movement that she helped create. Carrying on that legacy, many of her close friends and colleagues are here with us in the gallery today. Deb is survived by her husband, Andy Perry, her mother, Mary Lou, her father, Jack Hubsmith, and his wife, Ellie, her sister, Christine D'Angelo, and her partner, Patrick Bastian, her niece, Carly D'Angelo, and her nephew, Drew D'Angelo. Deb is also survived by her loving aunts, uncles, and cousins, and her amazing community of close friends. We all miss you, Deb. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Members, please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. We have one bill that is on call. I'm prepared to lift the call on Senate Bill 175. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 34, noes 3, measure fails. Mr. Lackey notices reconsideration. Members, a few announcements. Mr. Ridley Thomas, you are recognized for your announcement.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. For those members of the Committee on Elections and Redistricting, we'll be meeting upon adjournment of session in room 447. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, when you see Mr. Thurman, please wish him a happy birthday. His birthday was last Friday. Happy birthday to Mr. Thurman. And members, Ms. Garcia's birthday was last Saturday. Happy birthday to Ms. Garcia. And Mr. Dodd, when you see him, please congratulate him. He's become a grandfather for the 5th time, a healthy baby girl, a new granddaughter for Grandpa Bill Dodd. Congratulations. The session schedule is as follows: Tuesday, August 25th, check-in session. Wednesday, August 26th, check-in session. Thursday, August 27th, floor session, 9 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Chow moves, Ms. Baker seconds, that this House stands adjourned until Thursday, August 27th at 9 a.m. Quorum call is lifted.